Hello, in this video I'm going to give you some techniques for adding weaving and yarn in general to your macrame piece to create a macraweave, which is a combination of macrame and weaving. The first technique I'm going to show you is how to add tassels to your piece, which you add using a technique called a raya knot. To do this, you'll gather together a few pieces of yarn and you're going to lay it over two pieces of your macrame rope here. I'm going to take my left pieces of yarn and wrap it underneath my left piece and bring it in through the center. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. Wrap it around the right piece underneath it and bring it in through the center. And then go ahead and pull that down, and that makes a tassel for you. I've made these tassels super long, so I'd actually probably end up cutting these a little shorter, but just so you get the idea. And then I'll add another one just to show you one more time. So then you would go to the next two, lay it over those two, wrap around the left and bring the excess in through the center, and then around the right, bring the excess in through the center, match up your ends as best you can here, and then just pull that straight down. Also, I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of weaving. So I've just got a piece of yarn here. I'm not going to use a needle because usually when I use a needle, I actually sometimes will get it accidentally go through my pieces of rope. So I prefer not to use a needle when I'm weaving into my macrame pieces. This is just going to be regular tabby weave, which is over, under, over, under. So I'm just going to poke this in the back right here, and I'm going to start going left to right. So I'm going to go over this one, under this one, over the next one, under, over, all the way across. Now when I do this, you always want to give yourself a little bit of extra yarn by making a hill shape when you're weaving, but even more than you would do if you were weaving on a loom, you want to give yourself more extra yarn when you're weaving on a macrame piece, because your pieces of rope are a lot thicker than your warp string that you would use on a loom. So they've got a larger circumference, I guess you would say, to go around here. So now I'm going to press those down. It almost kind of bubbles out on my overs here, as you can see. And then I'm going to turn around and go the other way. So I ended on an over. That means when I come back, I'm going to go on an under, because I want my unders to go on top of my overs and my overs to go on top of my unders. The idea being that my overs will cover up my unders underneath, so I won't see the rope peeking through. So under, over, under, over, under, over. And then I'm just going to use my fingers to press that down. So that's a little bit of an overview of how to weave with yarn on your macrame pieces. And then the last thing I'm going to show you is how to do a braid stitch. I actually got way too much yarn here, so I'm just gonna poke a lot of it back here. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do the braid stitch, also known as a soumak stitch. I'm using roving, which is just fluffy unspun yarn. And to do this, I'm gonna go over 1/2 of my pieces of cord here. And then on that second one, I'm going to go around it and press that down. And then I'm going to go to the next one over 1/2 and go around that second one. And what this is doing, this is creating my bottom row of my braid. Over 1/2 and around. All right, rule of thumb, whenever I'm doing soumak on my Macraweaves, I always, on the last piece here, if I have a piece on the end, I go around it twice. just because you usually have a lot of space that you're trying to make up here. If you're weaving, it's easy just to do another few rows, but sometimes when you're doing soumak stitch, it's hard to fit another row in. So I like to just take up as much space as I can and go around twice here. Okay, and then once I turn around, just on this first one, I'm actually just gonna go over one so I can actually get my braid to kind of be staggered and fold in on itself. So just on that first one, I'm just gonna go around the first piece here, and then I'm back on my pattern. So then I'm gonna go over 1, 2, and around, over 1, 2. And even if I want to, soumak stitch is really flexible. I can switch this to always just going around over 1 and then around instead of over 2 and then around, or I can go over 3 and then around. I can really play with it depending on how like tight and puffy I want my braid, or if I want it more like elongated. And you can see we've got a little braid here. So then if I wanted to, I could continue to go up here, turn back around, and just fill in this area. But that's just the basic overview of some weaving techniques that you can incorporate into your macrame piece. I hope you found this video helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions.